son. Hey yo, I seen this shit on IG today. It said don't ever doubt the potential of yourself. In my sleep, psych. Sleep is a cousin to death, I don't sleep. Sleep is a cousin to death, I don't sleep. Sleep is a cousin to death, I don't sleep. I do my best work in my sleep, psych. Sleep is a cousin to death, I don't sleep. Sleep is a cousin to death, I don't sleep. Sleep is a cousin to death, I don't sleep. So about that IG post, I was reading it, right? It's crazy, right? Like,
wake up, man, wake up. What, man? What's up? Bro, you came all the way here from State College to fall asleep in this office. Are you crazy? Where we at again, man? Bro, don't play. We're at Fat Beats. Do you know who just came in here? Who? Busta Rhymes. No way. Yep. Why didn't you wake me up? Cause sleep is the cousin of death. Come on, man, let's go. See, my buddy Luis was a dick like that. He's the type of dude to do some shit like that just to prove a point in life that sometimes you only get a few chances to make it big. And that was certainly one of them, but fuck it, right? Too late now. It was Monday morning and I was still feeling some type of way because my boy Luis, a Venezuelan American intern at the time for IBM, let his dog Rocky eat my Avizu shoes the night before. And this man was tripping because I fell asleep in Fat Beats in his colleague's office. I was in the city for a week, so he let me stay at his apartment in Long Island City section of Queens, which for those of you who aren't from NY like me, it is right next to the notorious Queensbridge. That weekend, I actually took a short walk around Vernon to the 41st side to pay homage to the projects that raised the legendary Nas. I even filmed a video in Queens to a song I wrote called Headless Horseman. It was my first HD video that I shot in NYC, and believe it or Ripley's, my boy wouldn't even hold the camera for me. See, Luis was a perfectionist. Anything he had his hand in had to be done perfect. I guess that's why he ended up getting the job at IBM and me, not so much. We had spent most of the week catching up, just basically bullshitting. Me and Luis met at State College before he graduated and moved to Queens. To keep it a band with you, I kind of felt left out because he started a record label called Well Done Entertainment, and he signed an artist by the name of Reef the Lost Cause. I'm not even gonna lie, I was kind of jealous that he would put so much time behind Reef and not me because they grew up together. So I understand the logic. Besides, I was a premier slacker at the time who didn't know whether he wanted to finish school or swim with the big fish at the time. Well, if there is any time to know what I wanted to do, this was it. All I knew was music could put a pack of cigarettes in my pocket and enough to buy a blunt, so I was cool with that. Before the end of the week, L gave me another great opportunity to shine. He was working on a project with Noisemaker and just so happened to be in close contact with Large Professor, the producer of Nas. We were near Flushing anyway, so he decided to take me to his place to meet him. When he opened his door, the first thing I noticed was this dude sounded just like he did on his albums. I was on one, but I didn't say much. We sat down and I just let my boy do most of the talking. All I could do was stare at the wall where Nas's plaque probably still hangs from his debut record, Illmatic. It is literally etched into my mind to this day. Before leaving, I told Large Professor it was an honor to meet him, and I handed him a copy of my demo, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Back then, I was naming a lot of my demos after movies and such. I can't help but to wonder what was going through his head at the time. Like I was in a legendary producer's crib and all I could do was say it was an honor to meet you. See, this is where me and Luis differ. Luis was very opportunistic, more so than I could ever been at the time. Most people who move to the city are. If we reverse roles for a moment, Luis would have walked out with at least his phone number or established some type of common ground. But like I said earlier, it's too late now. I guess I figured my music would do the talking. 3 days later, I'm back in State College doing the same shit that I did for years. Selling CDs on College Ave, skipping classes and chilling at the frat houses trying to politic new actions. That's when my buddy Domino and Kush bust in with the news. Mac Miller was going to be performing at their frat and they wanted me to open up for him. Me not having rehearsed any of my songs for a few weeks, thought it'd only be right if I invite my little homie Chase to come open up with me to take the weight of performing off of my shoulders. So I did. Chase gladly accepted the invitation, and the rest is history. While Chase was in town visiting, I thought it'd only be right that he get the full state college experience, so I took him to my sociology class with me and introduced him to my professor after class. Sociology 200 was a class taught by Sam Richard, who was known to be a controversial professor due to his raw style of lecturing his students. I loved the class myself, but ended up dropping out to raise my GPA. By the time the Mac Miller show came around, we were high as hell from weed and cough syrup, and it was so bad I completely forgot my lines. After we performed, Mac Miller came out on stage, delivered a hell of a performance. Rest in peace. Chase was feeling some type of way for whatever reason, but I told him we'll have a better performance next time. Just go shake Mac Miller's hand and see if you can make a connection with him, so he did, and the rest is history. In retrospect, I should have actually gone and shook his hand with Chase, but you know how the story goes. Too many days later. That semester, I was taking another class that I really liked and did not so bad in. I believe it was public speaking, taught by Brian Amston. I really liked this class because of what it taught me about performing. See, performing in front of crowds has never really been my strong suit. So taking this class really helped me in the long haul when it came to my confidence in delivery. Not to mention, after each class I used to sit on the stoop and listen to the Willard preacher, have open debates with students outside of the Willard building where my public speaking class was held. I took careful to notice his choice of words, his tones, how obsequious he was not to rebuke any of his students for asking too many random questions or even challenging his religious stance or point of view. Another professor I owe a lot to is Professor King. She was a phenomenal woman of color who taught us a lot about race and gender, particularly pertaining to the politics of people of color who were a minority at Penn State. With all various student organizations at PSU, it is a shame that I wasn't more active, particularly in Black Caucus. I probably would have had more support when I got in trouble with the law. Instead, I rarely went to class and spent most of my time DJing on Penn State, the Line 90.7, where I had my own show, and in the media commons recording music. I was kind of a loner in school. I never really hung out too much outside of the library and the media commons. Through it all, I guess you could say college mostly not only taught me how not to approach life, it also taught me how to approach it, to be diverse, culturally aware, not oversaturated with the idea of it all. Learn to blend, know when to stand out, ask a lot of questions, and treat your guests the same way you would expect to be treated in your own house. I lived in State College, but I did not always look at it as my house. But just when I felt like an outcast, I would always make a new friend to help me through the times, like my friend Kat. She was cool as hell. I actually was friends with two chicks named Kat. They were both Russian. The one had a heavy accent and the other was from America, but her parents were from Russia or something like that. Kat, the American-born one, was actually the one who introduced me to my dean of my college, the College of Communications, Dean Selden. He was an African man who kind of reminded me of my dad. It was later when I actually chose media studies as my major after speaking with my academic advisor about all my dreams. One of the greatest perks to being a media student is not only that it gave me access to the media commons where recording studios were, that also granted me access to huge usage of the HD cameras that I often used to take trips to the city when I filmed videos with. While in town, though, I found another use for the cameras that I was blessed with. I would start interviewing people around town and become an independent journalist, well, really a vlogger. I guess they call it these days, and post them on my YouTube channel. I got to interview many profound individuals in and out of town. I also filmed many events taking place on campus, such as the Miss Africa PSU pageant, etc.
Sometimes I stare at the wall. I hear my conscience call, telling me do conscious music, but ladies love Prince Foul. Used to be my code D, now we barely pen pals. No playboy.
Sounds very good, thank you very much.
What's in a town? Some would say history, some would mention statistics and population, others would talk about economy and building structures, while some might mention crime rates and living expenses. And while all these things are important in any city or town, there is so much more. This is why we want to introduce you to Newcastle, PA. One of the largest historical districts featuring 1,700 homes, Newcastle is the epitome of family. It's where love grows, where education grooms and propels. It's where change is embraced and where unity is embodied. Perfect? Maybe not. Perfectly positioned? Absolutely. In the heart of Lawrence County, this Rust Belt town is known as being the fireworks capital of the country. It's also one of the many cities highlighted on the Underground Railroad. And if that wasn't a great enough historical fact, Newcastle has recently elected its very first black mayor. It's an exciting time, to say the least, to be a member of this great community and these people, but there's more. Newcastle has so much to offer, but it can often go unnoticed. There's a great deal of the downtown area that is underdeveloped. As you know, this can make a city look a bit run down. But rundown is far from what Newcastle is. Newcastle is deserving of attention simply because of the heart that it operates in. Some may have decided that it can't change. However, change is always good and change is always available. One only needs to believe. And we believe. We believe that Newcastle will thrive because we support our own. We believe that Newcastle can change for the better because that is what we encourage our residents to do. We believe that Newcastle is about to reveal even greater things because greatness resides here. In the very DNA of the air we breathe, in the streets and parks, in the homes and schools, in the smiles of the children, and in the wisdom of our elders, we are great. But not only are we great, we are family. So today, I introduce you to Newcastle. And I dare to say that our hometown can become better through you because we are better together. Hey, Newcastle.
Hey, Newcastle. I love you.
Time passed and I was getting sick of school, so I dropped out for a couple semesters. I started dabbling in music again, and my family was wondering if I was going to go back to school or not. I started reaching out to some of my sister's contacts in the city. Mind you, this is the same sister who dated Russell Simmons' older brother Danny back in 2000, so you can only imagine all the connections she has in the city. See, after I personally asked Danny to help me shop my demo to Def Jam, my sister did not take it too well. She kind of spazzed out on me for not talking to her about it first. Since then, I kind of been hesitant to ask her for anything, especially a hookup when it came to music. She was cool with helping me out, but only while I was in school. So I remembered another name of another guy by the name of Bruce George, who she knew through dealing with the Simmons, but I forgot the number she gave me so long ago, so I went back and went about it the long way, and I got in touch with one of his agents named Barbara from Admire Entertainment. Through her, I was able to track down his contact info. It took so many calls and eventually emails, but eventually I got through. Fast forward to 2017, I was back living in Newcastle at the time. I had just finished my first deal, which was not actually a deal, but a contract with Bruce George, co-founder of Def Poetry Jam, which made us business partners via his Genius is Common platform. This was great news to me because I also became a booking agent for him, securing any gigs that I found for him. So I wasn't bound as if I was signed to a record label, but I had access to Bruce as I looked to him as a mentor for solid advice and irreplaceable jewels that I would never have obtained anywhere else but in our conversations. For the next 3 years, off and on, I worked for him. From NY to MIA to LA, I spread the Genius is Common slogan. Those 3 years, I learned a lot about business. I learned a lot about taking losses too. I endured 2 trademark rejections from the United States Patent and Trademark Office whenever a record company thought that my name was too similar to theirs. I guess my clothing line was too similar to Jay-Z's brand, so I had to gracefully bow out of that one as well. But all in all, I still had my job with Bruce, so I was happy. But comfortable? Not really. It was 2019. I had just returned from PA from LA, where I was recording with DJ Lazy K in her $1 million studio. And I ended up back in Newcastle living in an apartment with two fiends that lived 2 floors underneath me. My apartment got broken into and I was considering moving out. I spent a lot of money on bud and partying with chicks so much that I got backed up on my rent. By the time my lease was up, I ended up owing money to my landlord, so I could not renew my apartment even after the fiend neighbors got kicked out. Time passed and COVID-19 made things hella difficult as far as finding work. I lost touch with Bruce, but I ended up buying a book called How to Win Big in the Music Industry by Clinton Sparks from Get Familiar Radio. I started reaching out a lot to music industry plugs, which is how I found DJ Lazy K, and ended up reaching out to Clinton Sparks about joining his winner circle. He was with it, but while I got that process in motion, I dropped a track called Rockabye Baby remix featuring Bizarre from Eminem's D12 on iTunes. So basically I was making up for time lost from the pandemic. I also reached out to the Brat from the Dish Nation, and she promoted me on her platform to various DatPiff, Spotify, and other sites. I ended up finding a new apartment and settling into a more quieter location of the Newcastle area and started writing again. Dollars Up, and another edited by Bruce George, Think Like a Cop. Before I got to this one, I had to go through what I went through to make me realize how blessed I am to have as many industry connects that I do. And that I know what I know about the game, which gives me a greater chance to reach a greater level of success in the business once I apply what I know more consistently. I learned that writing has a flow. Sometimes you feel it and sometimes you don't. Never force it when you come up dry. But when you feel it, feel the writing bug, write relentlessly. You never know where it may take you. Just today, an author boarded a private plane headed to a private college to lecture a forum of eager students paying buckets of money to earn their masters or doctorates. I want to be that author, but first I gotta catch some sleep.
I got up early, went to school on mama's coattails. I learned from the goddess, I was raised off of oatmeal. Just thinking back how my moms could have raised me. I know cats who sold to their moms, yo, it's crazy. On some Tupac shit, Brenda's got a baby. She said no one can stop you once you got your education. I learned this lesson too well from taking long vacations to the hospital, back and forth police station. They already trying to have us trapped up in the matrix, so I stay out the way, done this back to the basics.